Hi, my name's Phil. Talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss a letter written by the Chief Executive of the Road Haulage Association, who said that the government's approach to haulage arrangements with Brexit just a few weeks away is a complete shambles. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, as a reminder, I don't think I'd have to do too many of these. I talk about haulage quite a bit, especially recently. But we are about to need to complete and have checked about 500,000 new customs declarations forms a year from the end of the transition period. I think 400,000-ish or something like that was the figure, which is an onerous task for traders and hauliers alike, but also for customs officials, because they don't just have to be filled in. That's a lot of extra paperwork to fill in. They also have to be checked. But of course, you know, when you're the government, a lazy Conservative government, you don't actually want to do your own job. So what you actually want to do is to dump your in tray onto some other bugger. So hauliers and exporters will have to manage their customs declarations, but the government want an IT system to deal with it at their end, so they don't have to do anything. Not that it's laziness as such, it is necessity. We can't actually carry out all the checks necessary. We don't have the staff. We don't have the room to expand facilities at our major ports. The land just isn't available. We can do a little bit, and there is some money to do a little bit, although none of it's been allocated yet, so the work hasn't started, but we can't do much. So the idea is for all customs declarations to be logged onto a shiny new IT system, part of which is called the Goods Vehicle Management System. This is where hauliers submit their documentation. Now, the idea being that they upload all that well ahead of their journey, or as far ahead of their journey as they can. That it all gets sorted, all gets checked. They get their Kent access permit, because remember, you're not allowed in Kent without special permission from the government now, if you're a lorry driver, that is. If you go anywhere near the ports of Dover or Folkestone, and you haven't got this permit, you've not been cleared, you'll be getting a hefty fine, hundreds of pounds, again automatically. Now, the problems with this are manifold, but two comes to mind immediately. First of all, the system is considered to be bloated. I suppose what's happened is they left it too late to develop a nice streamlined system, so they got lots of different people to develop systems in isolation that they will then cobble together, getting Dr. Frankenstein in on that one. So it may take a while as a result of this bloated system that's just cobbled together from various bits for staff, logistics staff, to familiarise themselves with it. Second thing is, a little bit of a problem, minor problem really, is the system doesn't actually exist. There's a bit of a barrier to hauliers trying to learn how to use it. And it's the second point that Richard Burnett, the Chief Executive of the Road Haulage Association, I think, at a time of particular challenge for his industry, has taken issue, because he met with government officials last week and he came away unimpressed that he couldn't get any of his questions answered. Essentially, at the time, they were 35 days away from Brexit. It's like 30 now, isn't it? And the government, 30 and a bit, I suppose, still don't know how lorries are going to get their goods between the UK and the EU in detail. You know, they know that they have to load some goods on, they know have to fill in some paperwork, and they know they have to go to Dover or wherever it is they're going and then get to the other side. But at the same time, they don't know how that is to be achieved, because the IT system that is going to manage this beautifully, oh, it's going to be perfect, doesn't exist. I mean, there's a trial version. When I say it doesn't exist, there is a version of it, a trial version that's been tested by a very small number of people, not the entire haulage industry. They were supposed to be being able to trial it by now. Can't. Very few people have access, therefore. Now, the plan, if we can call it that, is now for that to be rolled out on December the 23rd. So the government expect the haulage industry to, en masse, learn how to use this system with just 8 days to go over the Christmas period. So COVID or no COVID, there's no way these guys are getting much of a festive break, is there? And who's going to believe that the rollout will go smoothly? Who's going to believe that when it is rolled out en masse, it'll all work, and that everyone who needs to is going to be able to learn how to use it within 8 days? 4 years to develop a system that has failed every deadline that the government has set for release, but not to worry, because they've come up with the answer to that. They've set another deadline with just 1 week to go before it needs to work perfectly every time. Because if it doesn't work perfectly, even if it works 99% of the time, that's still 1% of stuff that's going to be gumming up the works, causing massive delays. You don't have to delay for very long before you've got a massive delay on your hands. And an article I was reading about this, it was in Sky, the letter was shown to Sky News. And it noted that by contrast, the French system has had a full year of public testing. Now that indicates a couple of things, two things very clearly. First of all, it was possible to develop a system in time because the French did so, with plenty of time for testing as well. We saw their latest test and what that did last week. Second thing is, we have absolutely no idea what we're doing. You know, we're going to be entering overnight changes to our cross-border trading arrangements with neighbours, as well as internally, because remember that our trading arrangements with Northern Ireland are changing as well, and lorries have to treat Kent like a foreign country as well. Bernard apparently called the government to ask for the EU to phase in these checks. Now this is something I believe the government have asked for. It's not happening. I mean, why should the EU risk pissing off their international trading partners for the UK, who not only chose to leave the single market and customs union, this isn't even all about leaving the EU. We didn't have to leave the customs union and single market, we chose to do that. And we chose to do it in the most petulant and childish way possible. Why should the EU break their own rules to help us? And the consequence of these checks not being phased is quite clear. According to Bernard, an operational disaster is what he called it. He said there were already huge pressures in the industry. Again, it's the timing of it. It's like no time is good for this, but there are times of the year when it's worse than others. And do you know what? End of the year is pretty bad time because the COVID lockdown has put extra pressure on hauliers. Christmas always does. Busy enough then as well as the stockpiling that a lot of businesses are doing ahead of the end of the transition period. So all of this is a challenging enough time for the industry as it is, without, even if systems were all fully in place for next year, but they're not. And in response, I saw the usual government defence of, oh, we've put in 700 million quid, you know, we're spending all this money. But as I talked about last week, actually quite a lot of that money hasn't been spent. It hasn't even been allocated yet. You know, they've said they're going to provide it, but they haven't actually done it. And because they haven't actually provided it, the work for which that money is intended hasn't actually taken place. Some of it's still being considered. There's been no allocation of funds, as I say, needed for expanding our port facilities as yet. So, I mean, the money is useless anyway, isn't it? If either it's not enough, because the government keep doing this, they keep talking about how much money they're putting in. But again, my answer should be, okay, compare the amount of money you're putting in with how much money is needed. Because it seems to me that every time it's less than needed. So actually, why don't you say how much money you're not putting in? And also, if the money that is being put in supposedly isn't even been spent, it's like, you know, locked away in Michael Gove's chest, waiting for release still, then again, you haven't spent anything. You know, why can't the government, for example, instead of just going on about the money, boast about the information that they've provided businesses to help them out? Or the custom systems that they've implemented is all now up and running and tested. The reason they can't boast about those things is because they haven't done those things. All they've done is to make it clear that if Brexit goes wrong, it's the fault of businesses for not preparing when the UK government is about prepared for Brexit that they campaigned for and forced upon us as Mr. Magoo would be for an eye test. But there it is. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.